Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here to show you how you can make pancakes very simply out of your food storage. It really doesn't take much. Pancakes are one of the easiest things to make. If you're totally new to cooking and baking, you do not need a box of pancake mix. I'm telling you, it's very simple. And what I'm also going to do is show you some options and variations, things that you can use for your various needs to make them more healthy, and if you're gluten-free and that kind of stuff. So, or even if you're vegan. I'm not vegan, I'm going to be using eggs in mine, but there's other options you can do if you're vegan and you want to make pancakes. You know, I've been vegan in the past, and I've never been gluten-free, though every so often I do try to do a little bit of gluten-free stuff, mostly to stay practiced up for friends and family that may have gluten issues. Okay, so first thing that you need to know is that roughly an average batch of pancakes is going to need these items. Let's say I'm talking about an average size that would feed about a family of 4. You're going to be looking at 2 cups of flour, 1 egg, this is just standard, okay, a tablespoon of baking powder, about a teaspoon tops of salt. I'd go half teaspoon for that. And then about a 1/3 cup, a 1/4 to a 1/3 cup of some kind of fat, some kind of oil, and then enough milk to get the batter to the consistency that you want it for cooking with. If you're vegan, I suggest going with like maybe some homemade coconut milk, almond milk, cashew milk. I've made all of these. I've even made Brazil nut milk, and I have videos on how you can make your own nut milk. So I'll go ahead and link to one of them right up here. I've even made hemp seed milk, which personally was my least favorite. My very favorite is pecan and cashew. That one is really good. And then what you can do with the pulp, when it's after you get all the milk out of it, you can turn the pulp into a vegan cheese. It's so yummy. But anyway, so there's some options there. There's your basics. So the milk's going to be maybe 2 to 3 cups. It just really depends. It depends on how thick you want your batter. So I never measure it out when it comes to the milk. I only measure out the dry ingredients a little bit, so I can, you know, because I'm trying to usually just make enough for Mr. Rain in the morning. Now, the other thing about what I'm doing is I'm actually making these pancakes for the batter for tomorrow morning. And typically what I'll do is when I'm going to make pancakes, I get up really early. I get the pancake batter going and then let it just sit. Letting the flours and stuff soak, especially if you're using grain flours, is a really good idea. So you can either do what I'm doing this time around, make it the day before, stick it in the fridge and let it soak overnight, and then make your pancakes in the morning, or just get up really early and make it and let them soak for an hour or two, for I would say up to 24 hours tops. So anyway, I'm going to bring you over here and show you some of the things I've got and talk about some of your variations. Okay, so if you're going to go gluten-free, buckwheat flour is one of those I really recommend. It's super good. I love buckwheat in my pancakes. And then another one of my favorites for at least just adding to the pancakes, even if I'm not doing gluten-free, is coconut flour, because it's going to add, if you like the taste and smell of coconut, you'll really like this. Obviously, if you don't like the taste and smell of coconut, you want to avoid it. And then other types of nut flours would be a really good idea, you know, almond flour and so on and so forth. I'm only going to make half a batch, and so I'm going to be only using a total of 1 cup of flour. So I'm going to be using a 1/4 cup measuring cup to measure out the different flours. So what I've got here is a blend of it's buckwheat, ground in my grain mill. It's buckwheat flour, einkorn wheat, soft white wheat, hard white wheat, and spelt flour, all in this one thing. So I'm going to put in just, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 of those. And since I already have some buckwheat in here, I'm not going to go with that. And I'm going to put in 2 1/4 cups of the coconut flour. Now, in replace of your egg, if you're vegan, you can use, and you may already know this, you can use applesauce. You do still want to make sure you're getting your fat in there, though. You cannot replace your fat and your egg in the same recipe. Some people used to use soy flour mixed with water for the egg replacement, but I recommend staying away from soy. Now for the salt, I'm just going to put in a pinch of the salt. This is the Himalayan salt here. And here's my grains, by the way. These are my pre-soaked grains, pre-soaked and dried. These are the ones I'll grind up in the grain mill. All right, and then some other ingredients I like to add, especially if it's something I'm going to be soaking, is about a tablespoon each, which would be 2 tablespoons if I was making a regular size recipe, of the flaxseed, the poppy seed, the chia seed, and the hemp seed. You can use any one of these or any blend of these or any other small seeds that you think you would like to add to your pancake batter. These ones are all really nice because they're not something like sesame seeds going to definitely change the flavor, where these aren't going to change the flavor. These are all very mild flavor. They're going to add a lot of health benefits to your pancake batter and not be so big that they're going to be crunchy or whatever. Okay, and then blend that up. Now another option you can do here if you would like is add just a little bit of sugar, especially since you're going to be soaking it anyway. I think that's just going to really help with the overall rise. Just a little bit. I'm just putting a teaspoon in this. And then, like I said with the baking powder, if it's a regular size 2-cup flour recipe, you're going to put in a tablespoon. Now what I keep in here, this thing actually measures right at half a tablespoon, which is 1.5 teaspoons, because there's 3 teaspoons in every tablespoon. It's always good to know your measurements and how to break things up. So just like a 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. If you can learn all that stuff, it's going to really help you to know how to half or double or triple or quadruple recipes as is needed. Or even if you want to quarter a recipe, knowing how to divide up a tablespoon into 3 parts or into half, it just makes it a lot easier. Now, when you're doing gluten-free flours, you really want, and let's say you're gluten-free but you're not vegan, you want to raise your egg ratio, because if you've been gluten-free and baking for yourself for a while, you'll know that gluten-free flours don't typically hold together really well. And what I have here is 2 eggs from last year. I'm still trying to work through the frozen eggs, the eggs I froze up from last year's eggs from our chickens. And especially now that they're laying again, and I got to get these used up. And I actually have 2 in here. Now for this recipe, what I've got in here, I would only use 1, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the whole package. It's not going to hurt anything. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in right now. And then the fat, again, for a full recipe, 1/4 to 1/3 cup of oil. I recommend avocado oil because it's easy to use. This particular avocado oil anyway is flavorless and very easy to use. Unlike your coconut oil, you'll have to, unless you get fractionated, then you'll have to melt it down and add it, and then it tends to want to solidify when you chill it or let it sit. So I prefer using the avocado oil. Now there are other avocado oils that have some flavor. There is another one I like to use. I like to use that one when I'm making homemade mayonnaise. Next, what I like to do is add a little bit of vinegar. Choose one of your homemade vinegars that has a really nice flavor for this. You know, I would say it could be something simple like apple cider vinegar, but you could also use peach. I'm going to be using raisin. Raisin is a really good one. I'm not going to use my floral vinegars in something like this. And about a tablespoon, that was more than a tablespoon, I'm pretty sure. But like usual, I just pour this stuff in there. And again, you can see I'm just kind of mixing a little bit at a time. And now I'm going to be using boxed milk today. You can use fresh milk, but I was kind of focusing more on the food storage thing. And this is one of the milks we keep in our food storage. Another one that we keep is this. This one I get on Amazon. You can get on Subscribe and Save and really save some money. The Gosner milk, I have a whole video just on milk for storage. I have several different types of milk that I store up. So I'll go ahead and link you to that so you can check that out. But anyway, I know some people can get this boxed milk for really cheap at a dollar store near them. But it's a really good option. It's not going to be the healthiest, but make sure you at least get the whole milk. You can go with healthier options for storage. Obviously, if you have your own milk animals, you know, goats or cows, and you're using the raw milk, that's going to be the best right there. Okay, so then just keep adding your milk until you get it the consistency you want. And you just don't want to go overboard. I like to start small and kind of work my way up and keep mixing it in there. And also keep in mind, I always forget this, coconut flour in particular soaks up a lot of liquid. So if you use coconut flour, just keep in mind you're going to need a lot more liquid in it. So 2 eggs in this and all this milk is going to really help with that. But anyway, so yeah, just keep mixing it. And you might find in the next day after, you know, after you've let it soaked or after a few hours, however long it is you're letting it soak, you might find that you'll still need to add more liquid then. And that's fine, as long as you got all your necessary stuff in here. Okay, and so what happens with the vinegar? The vinegar does help activate, does help work in tandem with the baking powder to help it to rise better. And I think it just makes it healthier. Plus it gives you more of a buttermilk type pancake when you do that. So that's one way you can do a buttermilk replacement, by the way, in case you don't know it. You take a, you take a cup, if you want a cup of buttermilk, you're going to have a cup of milk, almost shy 1 tablespoon, so you can put a tablespoon of vinegar in it. You want to make sure it's at least a 5% acidity vinegar. And then you're going to let it sit for at least a half hour or 15 minutes at least, but the longer the better. And that's going to clabber that milk and get it thick and then give it more of that buttermilk type flavor. So that's another reason why I do it this way. But I just put it right in the batter rather than letting it sit. I used to let it sit. Now I just put it right in the batter and then let the whole thing soak. And I'm soaking my seeds and my grains all at the same time. So let's put a little bit more milk in there. And again, you'll find with that coconut flour, it'll just keep soaking it up. So you'll have to keep adding more and more. This is going to make a lot of pancakes, which means it looks like I'll be eating breakfast tomorrow too. I don't always eat breakfast, but sometimes I do, especially when it's pancakes, because I still like pancakes. Okay, so now you can take your batter and you can put it in a container like this. I really like these containers. I use these a lot. It's I always call it the wrong thing, glassware, snap lock, something or other. And I'll go ahead and link to those below, or at least a package that's similar to the ones I bought. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it in this bowl and put some of my wax fabric over the top. This is, I make my own wax fabric. And you just kind of fold it around there, and then I'll let it sit in the fridge overnight, and so they'll be ready for the pancakes tomorrow. Now, since I'm going to be making these pancakes in the morning, I'm not going to finish this video out showing you how I cook them, because I don't like shooting videos in the morning, to tell you the truth. But what I use is my griddle, my cast iron griddle. We've had this for, well, as long as we've been married, and to be honest, I don't even know where it came from. Somebody gave it to us many years ago. And anyway, this is what I make my pancakes on. And what I do is I set it on my wood stove. And if you're using a conventional stove, just set it on there, let it heat up. The temperature you set it at is going to be totally dependent on your heat source, how hot it gets and all that. So I can't tell you that. A lot of people will say, oh, set your heat on medium. Well, for one person, a medium heat on a conventional stove could be high. For another person, it could be low, I mean, in comparison. So I find usually around medium, between medium and medium high to be good if I was going to use conventional, but I always do my pancakes on the wood stove, so it just depends. I just let it get good and hot first. Put a little bit of coconut oil on there or some other kind of oil. Even your clarified butter would be a good choice to put on there, and then just let it get really hot. Let it heat up to full temperature before you put your pancake batter on there. You can drop a little bit on there to test. And then it'll take a few minutes per side, especially depending on how hot it is. And if your batter is really thick and you like it that way, so it's more of a cake, a pancake, then you're going to want your heat to be lower so that it will cook all the way through the pancake. If your batter is thinner, then you can go with a hotter setting. And again, it's going to be up to you. You may have to experiment with it. I've noticed with every cook source I've done and made pancakes on, where I set the temperature was different for each one to get just the perfect heat. So you have to experiment. I say start with just making some dollar-size pancakes first, silver dollar size or smaller, and just kind of keep experimenting with your heat. As the pancake is cooking, watch for it to get very bubbly on top. That's when you'll know it's about ready to flip. It should have quite a few bubbles along the top, and you should see it, the edges of it looking pretty firm and well done. And you can take your spatula and sort of peek under it and see what it looks like to check. But if it's not, if you go to try to flip it and it's not wanting to pick up solid, it's not ready. And especially if you're using your gluten-free flours, those you really got to be careful with, because this thing, if you go to flip it and it's not ready, it's going to completely fall apart. And then don't forget your other options. Other things I've done with my pancakes in the past, if I've mashed up, if I had some bananas we didn't work through fast enough and I have some really ripe bananas, mash up a banana and put it in there. Don't forget, you know, in the summertime, you got fresh blueberries coming in. Throw some blueberries in there. Just be creative and do whatever you want. And remember, you don't even have to just stick to maple syrup for a topping. You can use some of your homemade jams and apple butters and stuff like that. Okay, well, I hope that helps give you some different ideas of things that you can do with your pancakes. And if you have some of your own unique ideas of how you like to make your pancakes, especially if you're gluten-free. So Edie, if you have some really great ideas on that, go ahead and post them below so people can learn from you as well. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.